Talk About Peace Talks by Jim Butcher. Part 1. Being a part 1 is a hard thing to be. So when I was reading Peace Talks, I was so excited, so down for it, because this book is actually really good on a chapter-by-chapter basis. Like, the character interactions are so precious, the plot, when you're in the thick of it, pretty entertaining. Like, the book itself is very enjoyable. But then, once I had closed the book, I just had to, text all my friends and be like, remember that book I was really looking forward to reading? Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about it, because the ending was like, what? And going in, I knew that this was part 1 of 2. I know that Peace Talks and Battlegrounds are supposed to be, best buddies forever. And part of my disappointment with Peace Talks was this feeling of unresolvedness. It's like you're watching a movie like Star Wars, and then they've rescued Princess Leia and they got her out of the cell, and then the movie just ends. And you're like, wait a minute, what about that whole Darth Vader plot? I felt that the problem was all these unresolved plot lines, so I started making a list of all the unresolved plot lines and Chekhov's guns. Justine is in danger and pregnant. Harry is going to get kicked off the White Council. Harry and Ebenezer have conflict over Maggie and the vampires. The police are investigating Harry over the events of Skin Game. Harry and Lyra's frenemies dynamic is increasing. Thomas has an assassination attempt on the Spardelves. The Outsiders are attacking Harry and Ebenezer. There are various Starborn secrets. The Knights of the Cross are in town. The Wardens are ready to throw down with Harry. Molly is slipping more and more into the Winter Lady mantle. Harry is now in debt to Molly. The Sword of Faith is a safety sword. Various Bigfoot lore and history. River Shoulders offering to teach Harry. Lots of different cars are tailing Harry. Goodman Gray is protecting Justine, but what is he protecting her from? The titular Peace Talks, breaking Thomas out of jail, and Ethnio and the Fomor attack. And then after making the list, I realized that most of the things on the list I'm totally fine with being unresolved. There are a few that get resolved. However, making this list made me realize that I'd be totally fine if most of these plots never actually get resolved in Battleground. River Shoulders mentoring Harry. That's probably not going to happen in Battlegrounds, but I'm totally fine with that, right? Most of these plot lines, I don't actually have an aching need for them to be resolved. So after I made the list and realized that my list was stupid, I kind of thought, well, what is it about this book that makes you feel like it's so unfinished? Peace Talks is more independent than just a typical part 1 out of 2 of a story. But it's not quite its own book. So Peace Talks falls into this uncanny valley region where you can't enjoy it as just a part 1 out of 2, but you can't yet enjoy it as entirely its own book because it feels not yet complete. But what is it that makes Peace Talks feel like this, that decreases some of the enjoyment? Because in the end, it's not that so many plot lines are started and not continued or explored on and resolved. It's that a few themes are kind of started and explored, but then they don't come to any conclusion. Because a theme isn't just love. It's not just about exploring the concept of love, it's about exploring the concept of love and through the narrative coming to a conclusion about it. Even if different characters come to different conclusions, there's some sort of completion in the narrative. And once I started exploring the themes of Peace Talks, I realized that there are quite a few themes that start getting explored, but then never get resolved. Part 2, the real problem with Peace Talks. So, the first theme that starts to get explored and then doesn't is actually kind of a small theme. Maybe it's more of a motif, but it connects to the larger theme of the Dresden verse, which is the past comes back around. If you make a bad decision, it's going to come around to bite you. If you make a good decision, it might just come around to save the day in the end. However, in this book, there's a lot of villains that kind of their plot was done. But then they come back for a small mention, like Detective Rudolph, the Janasqua, and Mavra. They don't actually have any purpose in the story. They're just brought up, and Harry's like, oh, them again? I thought I defeated them. But that one's just a small one. A bigger one is this: finding a home. In this book, Harry reminisces over and over about how he really misses his old apartment because it got burned down, and then, to add insult to injury, Marcone bought the lot and built his castle on top. So when Harry is in Molly's apartment, he doesn't feel quite at home. When he's then forced to accept that he'll have to move out of the apartment, it just greatens this effect. And there's a beautiful chapter where Harry is drawn to tears over him wanting to just go home and realizing that there is no place to go home to. I felt awful. I felt really, really awful. And I wanted to go home. Home, like love, hate, war, and peace, is one of those words that is so important that it doesn't need more than one syllable. Home is part of the fabric of who humans are. Doesn't matter if you're a vampire, or a wizard, or a secretary, or a school teacher. You have to have a home. Even if only in principle, there has to be a 0 point from which you can make comparisons to everything else. Home tends to be it. That can be a good thing, to help you stay oriented in a very confusing world. If you don't know where your feet are planted, you've got no way to know where you're heading when you start taking steps. It can be a bad thing when you run into something so different from home that it scares you and makes you angry. That's also part of being human. But there's a deeper meaning to home, something simpler, more primal. It's where you eat the best food because other predators can't take it from you very easily there. It's where you and your mate are the most intimate. It's where you raise your children, safe against a world that can do horrible things to them. It's where you sleep, safe. It's where you relax. It's where you dream. Home is where you embrace the present and plan for the future. It's where the books are. And more than anything else, it's where you build that world you want. I love the line in his ramblings where he says, you have to have a home even if it's only in principle, because even if Harry had just gotten a home in principle, this would have resolved the theme pretty good. Like, even if he had just come to the conclusion, like, home is wherever Maggie is, or wherever Murphy is, or where the heart is. You know, he's reminiscing on his home with his father when he's younger on the road, and that would work out, right? Or even if he accepts Demon Reach fully as his home, or even if he decides that he doesn't deserve a home because of all the terrible things he's done. Like, anything to resolve this theme would have been appreciated. But instead, it just starts to explore it, and then by the end, you're not really sure where Harry's thematic plotline of homeness is going. And another theme is, you're a chosen one, Harry. So, this book had a lot of that. Like, it starts out, Ebenezer is like, okay, by the way, you're totally a Starborn. I'm gonna give you a few little facts about it, and then we're gonna stop. Right? But in that wonderful fight with the Corner Hounds, Harry has his own moment where he kind of accepts being the chosen one for a little bit when he's fighting the hounds. Certainty flooded over me, the sense of the fusion of purpose, will, desire, and belief. Certainty that moments like this were precisely why I existed in the first place. Sounds like chosen one to me. Person chosen to fight the outsiders fits with Starborn, right? It also has a different kind of variant that's a little less Starborn-y, but no less chosen one-y when he's talking to Michael. And Michael's encouraging him like, hey, all of the other books, remember how you always saved the day? Maybe you're just the person who saves the day, and you should just trust in that and accept that you're, the protagonist. And then what? These kind of themes that get started and a little developed and then never reach like any satisfying conclusion is what really crushes my heart. But it's also why it's kind of better on a reread, because the key to satisfaction, lower expectations. Because if you already know that these plot lines and these themes aren't going to get resolved, it's not as disappointing when they don't. That brings us to part 3. If you actually look at the themes that are good, this book is amazing. So one of the main themes in this book is taking care of family. It starts right off. Thomas is worried about taking care of his future child. Harry is very concerned with taking care of Maggie. Lara is very concerned also with taking care of Thomas. Then, of course, opposing Harry being a pretty good parent, we have Ebenezer, who should be acting in a pretty parental role towards Thomas and Harry as his grandsons, but he kind of fails big time as he tries to kill them both in this book. So when I started analyzing these themes, I realized that for all of the themes that are actually resolved in Peace Talks, Ebenezer is the thematic villain, which makes his, role in the final battle against Harry so much more delicious. When you're first reading the book, it's kind of like, well, isn't that out of the blue? I guess he's crazy psycho villain now, kind of. But when you actually start analyzing it, him and Harry are totally opposed on all of the themes that matter in this book. Because Harry represents the theme of taking care of your family no matter what, really caring about them and wanting to be part of their lives. And Ebenezer represents the opposite. So when Harry wins the fight against Ebenezer in the end, he's also winning on behalf of family values. But of course, this win is so sad because in order for Harry to win this fight, he and Ebenezer had to completely fail at taking care of each other, their family. That if Harry had found a better way to tell Ebenezer, hey, this is your grandson, any time in the last few years, then this could have gone a lot better. And if Ebenezer had, trusted Harry or wanted to take care of his grandsons a little better, also wouldn't have happened. So Harry doesn't really win this fight. But it does prove that taking care of family is the way to go, which Murphy only reinforces by making Harry promise to go try to reconcile with Ebenezer in the future. A next pretty awesome theme in this book is trust and betrayal. Well, Ebenezer goes from, in the beginning of the book, being someone who's trusted into someone who actually betrays Harry. He's the one who really introduces this theme with telling Harry, hey, I think someone's gonna betray you. Spoiler, it's kind of Ebenezer. The debate of this is who is trustworthy? What does this even mean? And there are some people who fall into one camp with Harry, which is the people who are trustworthy are the people who can keep their word. We see Harry express this with the Spartelves, with Laura, with Mab. Pretty much all the supernatural people he trusts because he knows that they will keep their word. And that's kind of the definition of trust that Harry is going off here. However, the definition of trust that a lot of other people are going off of is they're my friend, or they share moral judgments with me. And this is where Harry and Ebenezer once again butt heads. Because Ebenezer was fine with supporting Harry until he realizes that Harry doesn't share his moral judgments on taking care of Maggie or associating with vampires. And then we also have the Wardens, who have stopped trusting Harry along with a bunch of the other wizards because he's tangoing around with the Winter Court, something that they don't agree with. They don't trust him because they have a different definition of who is trustworthy, and it's not about keeping your word as much as it's about following our rules. So we get to see, with the Harry-Ebenezer dynamic, Harry moving even farther away from the second definition of trustworthiness. Because before, Harry trusted Ebenezer, not because Ebenezer was totally honest with him or always kept his word, but because he thought that Ebenezer shared a lot of moral judgments with him, that he thought that Ebenezer also followed the Tao of Peter Parker. He thought that Ebenezer also held magic so sacred. But then seeing over the course of many books that Ebenezer doesn't really share the same moral system as Harry does. Before, Harry expressed that because the Fae would follow the letter of the law, but not the spirit of it, they weren't trustworthy. You had to be really careful of the tricky Fae. But now Harry's kind of come around, where he says, actually, in certain situations, Mab is the most trustworthy person I know, because she will keep her word no matter what. And who knows, maybe Harry's change of perspective is because of the Winter Mantle kind of infecting his consciousness, which brings us to the third awesome theme in Peace Talks, which is losing yourself to the darkness. So Harry's been dealing with this since the very beginning of the series, dealing with the temptation to use black magic to cross the laws of magic, and now it's only intensified with the Winter Mantle pushing his thoughts and feelings around. And we even get to see another layer of this with him realizing that maybe all that time he's spending on Demon Reach isn't that good for his psyche, but maybe it's okay. So there's a lot of questions here about losing control, losing sight of your own self. So of course, we see our thematic villain, Ebenezer! Completely losing control to the point where he, literally murders Harry. Mostly literally. And Harry, of course, when he finally has to confront Ebenezer, he's also confronting this idea about losing control. his mentor, the one who was sturdy, the one who was always in control, is suddenly the poster child for not being in control of your emotions and your magic. So Harry is understandably worried, but in comes Karen Murphy to save the day, and she says, I'm going to help you out with that. So we do get a very nice conclusion here, where it is trust and taking care of family. I guess we can call Harry and Murphy family, close enough, right? It's the other two themes that all tie together into this moment where Harry and Murphy pledge themselves to each other once again, where Murphy is saying, I'll watch out for you. So, in conclusion, on my first read-through of Peace Talks, I kind of felt like the book was cluttered and unresolved, but on a reread and a further examination, it's actually pretty tightly woven. There are just a few threads and themes that really do feel unresolved and kind of empty. So, if I have to make a prediction about Battlegrounds, that's my prediction. It's going to be a book about finding a home and being the chosen one. I'm actually really excited to read that book. So, what do you guys think about Peace Talks? What was your first gut reaction when you finished the book, and how do you feel about it now, once you've had more time to stew it over?